Hey everyone, it's Monica. Welcome back to Homeschool Voices. One of the questions I get all the time is how do you teach something that you don't know anything about? That's what we're going to talk about today. I know it's a pretty crazy idea to think that you can teach something when you don't know anything about it, but that's because that you might be working with the paradigm of public schools, this idea that the teacher is an expert in whatever they're teaching and they're going to fill the vessels of your children's minds with information. And that's not exactly how homeschooling works. In short, you're learning along with your child. But I'm going to give you an example to help you understand better what I'm talking about. There are a few classes of things that are difficult to learn and difficult to teach if you don't know anything about them. One would be music, but even with music, there are online classes that you can sign your kids up for. You can get lessons. There's obvious ways to teach your kids. You're not teaching it, but you're ensuring that they learn it to teach them music, right? So I don't need to go in that too much. Then there's foreign language. But again, even now in the modern age, there's apps. Believe it or not, yes, there are apps that will get your feet wet. I mean, maybe a little more than your feet, maybe your legs too. You learn a lot from these apps. And then once they get their feet wet, then you can get a tutor or enroll them again. There's even online classes, there's in-person classes, there's all kinds of ways to teach things. Maybe robotics, that would be difficult to teach. Again, there's classes. My son learned how to program with Arduino just by getting a mailing box from Creation Crate, and that taught him a lot. He got a little frustrated. And so we got a class on Coursera, and that taught him a $15 class, and that taught him everything else he needed. It helped him get past the difficult spots, and then he was able to do all kinds of programming and do all kinds of cool projects. So those are a couple of simple examples, but I'm going to talk about something a little more interesting. What if you don't even know that you don't know something? How do you go, how would you even teach something if you don't even know? And that's like at a deeper level, right? It's not, hey, I don't know French, how do I teach my kid French? Well, that's obvious, you get a tutor. But how do you teach something that you don't even know you need to teach? So that brings me into the example that I wanted to talk about, because we've had a really cool experience this week, and I've had many other experiences like this, and I wanted to share this specific experience with you. So it all started with a very vague idea that reading is good. I mean, really that simple. Reading is good. People who read a lot are pretty smart. I mean, really, when my kids were little, that's about as deep as it went. My husband is very well read, and I had a couple of other friends who were very well read. I was not very well read. I don't have that personal experience, so I'm not really well read. It wasn't part of my childhood, part of my life. There's not a lot of books that I'm familiar with at the time, you know. And so, but I just knew reading was the foundation of everything, that it's extremely important. And that's what I based my kids' education off of, is reading. Okay, so it started with the idea that reading is good. And then that led me to look up book lists. Because again, I didn't have a bunch of childhood favorite books that I've read, because I didn't read that much as a kid. So I said, well, I want to start reading these books too, right? So I've been over the years reading these books to my kids and having them read them. So I have a 9 and a 13-year-old. We still read at night, but we read novels, we read bigger books, and it's just time to hang out as a family. So it is something that we're trying to cultivate in our family, and it's totally uncharted territory for me because it's not part of my childhood at all. Even though it's not part of my childhood, I still know that it's important, and I could still strive to find a way to make it a big part of my children's childhoods. I just want to take a second to emphasize something that's really important. So yes, I'm telling this story about how we got to this place where we had this really cool experience today. But you always need to remember that with everything that you do, you need to start with joy. Joy for you, the homeschool parent, first. You need to have some joy. If this is drudgery for you, how can you expect it to be anything but drudgery for your kids? But if you're excited about it and you have some enthusiasm, you're probably going to be able to, share some of that excitement with your kids, and it's going to rub off at least a little bit. But if you start off and you think it's drudgery and you hate doing it, then your kids aren't going to like it. So you have to start with finding the joy. And it sounds like, oh, not a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a huge part of the battle, right? Is finding the joy. The second part is taking your job as a homeschool parent very, very seriously. It is a job. You might already have a job, and now you have a second job. It takes time. It takes investment. You have to invest in your job and in your kids. So if you want to teach your kids, you need to think of this as a career. You need to make it your hobby, however you want to think about it, to always be looking things up. You're watching this video right now, and that's really great. And you need to watch more videos, and you need to talk with people online, and you need to meet with people in person and pick their brains. I mean, if you have a discussion with 5-6 people and you say, here's what I'm doing, and then someone else is going to say, oh, really? That's interesting. I'm doing this. And this other person will say, I don't really find it important to do that. And you will have these amazing discussions that'll really get you thinking. But you have to put the time in. You just have to, and there's no way around it. With that in mind, that's always been my mentality. So with the reading, I have always wanted to put the time in to figure out, okay, what books to read. And then, I've gone to conventions, and then they talk about having, discussions with your kids about the books. Okay, so that's where we are now, and we've been reading for years. Well, this one book, Animal Farm, has come up a lot on the book lists. And last year I joined a charter school, and I had all these funds, and I didn't know what to do with the funds. I wasn't used to needing to spend that much money. You actually, a little inside tip, you don't need those funds. You don't need to spend all that money, but I had them. So I looked into this curriculum called Moving Beyond the Page, and come to find out, it's a really, really great curriculum. It's worth investing in. It's really cool, even if you didn't have charter funds. But anyway, it's sort of like unit studies. So one of the things is this workbook. I think it lasts about 9 weeks or something. That's the way I've done it. And the workbook is for Animal Farm. So that's what led me to say, oh, I guess he's ready to read Animal Farm. I had read it last year. It's pretty intense. I realized it was about communism. I thought it was a really insightful book. That's about as far as my understanding went. Okay. Now, I don't even, tell you the truth, I don't even know what's inside the book yet, because I haven't had a chance to really look in it. He's just sort of started it. But I knew I wanted to have discussions with my son about this book, because that's something that you need to do a few times a year, right? This is a conclusion I've come to based off of taking my job as a homeschool parent seriously, doing lots of research, hearing that people do it, and, thinking about it, and it makes sense. Yes, you should have discussions about literature, because there's big ideas that you can talk about. And this book, Animal Farm, is a great example. So I'm getting ready to have discussions with my son about this book. And I am doing Google searches, and I'm amazed, because I read the book, but I didn't realize, I knew it was about communism, but I didn't realize it was an allegory in the sense that the characters in the book represent real life human beings. It's not just sort of a vague story about communism. It's a bit more specific than that. Then once you realize that, then you learn about the historical context, and oh my goodness, the rise of communism in Russia. Okay, I'm guessing that most of you went to public schools in the United States who are watching this. Do you know anything about the rise of communism in Russia, really? Do you know anything about the Russian Revolution? Stalin, Lenin, the kulaks, I think you say? It's no? What about the gulags? There's the kulaks and the gulags. One's a place, one's a group of people. Do you know anything about those? You guys, this is about as big as World War II and the Holocaust. And if you don't know about it, That's a failing of the American public school system. It's wrong. And I'm just starting to learn about it. And I'm sort of shocked that I never learned about it. It's not that I was a poor student. I was never taught these things in school. So this is a slightly different thing. But if you doubt your ability to teach your kids because you don't think you're smart enough, you're going to send them to the same school system that produced a person who doubts themselves and thinks they're not smart enough. They're not even going to teach them about the Russian Revolution and all this, the atrocities that happened. The Russian civilization was basically, I'm just learning this, was basically propped up for 30 years on slave labor. Did you know that? I didn't know that. But how did I learn it? I learned it from a vague idea that reading is good, that I should have discussions with my kids about books, and then and I'm going to go to book lists and find books that people value, and we're going to read them and have discussions. And then just going on Google and Googling the book and finding questions, finding information, watching multiple videos, and then one thing leads to another thing. One search leads to another search, which leads to another search. And all of a sudden, I have learned so much. I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I think you could tell. And I think that I'm going to impart some of this excitement to my son. In fact, I was watching one of the videos yesterday, and he came and started watching it with me. And it wasn't a school day, and it wasn't a requirement, and he just did it. I think partially because I'm so excited about it. But I can tell you one thing. Now that I know, I didn't even know that I should teach this. And I'm telling you guys, you should teach this. But that's not really the point, that you need to teach about the Russian Revolution. The point is, if you take your job seriously as a homeschool parent and you're constantly asking questions, you're constantly talking to people, you're constantly researching, you're going to cover most everything you need to cover. You're going to do a great job. I'm constantly so impressed by my friends. I'm talking to all of you guys out there. I think you know who you are. But I'm so impressed by you guys. It's not like I'm just proud of you. I'm inspired by you because you guys do such a good job and you're so creative. Why? Because you take it seriously. And you'll continue to take it seriously, and you'll continue to do a better and better job. And that's what I'm saying to everybody is just take it seriously, and you can't help but do a good job. And maybe you'll learn about the Russian Revolution in the process. And I really hope that you do, because it's very important. I hope that this was some good food for thought. If you have any more ideas or any thoughts, please tell me in the comments below. I really want to hear them. If you like this video, please click thumbs up. If you want to hear more videos like this, please click subscribe and the notification bell next to it. In the meantime, happy homeschooling and have a great day.